All right, so we recently updated our Unity Controls Dash app, and I thought we'd make a quick video to show everybody how things look if you use it as your dash in the car. We're running we're starting the app automatically on when the iPad gets power using an automation. I'll show you how to do that at the end of the video. All right, to start out, I'm gonna use, or I'll run through this main screen just to explain everything that's on it here, in case a lot of it is self-explanatory. But at the top right, you'll see it says connected to EV Controls T2C 2023. So that will let you know whether the app is actually connected to the T2C controller. It does this over Bluetooth. You don't need any wiring between the iPad and the actual controller. In the middle you have a readout of all the variables coming back from the inverter. You have your drive, neutral, and reverse buttons. You can engage different gears using the buttons on the screen. You can also wire in buttons directly to the T2C that has inputs for shift buttons and outputs for indicator lights. So that means you don't need the app to drive the car. So just to so down at in this right above in the middle at the center is your speed readout, so that's your speedometer. Below it is a brake regen light that will let you know whether your T2C is getting a signal from the brake switch, and it'll also light up when the regen is active, and when it's lit up, the output for the brake lights is active on the T2C, so you use it to run the brake lights in your car. There's a toggle here for logging. You can log to a file, a CSV file it'll create with and as soon as you stop, it'll give you this option here to email the log file or text message it to yourself. So that's a handy feature for, there's obviously some traction control stuff you see on here. We have it up and running in our test vehicles, but it's not available yet. You'll need a GPS module we'll be offering later. All right, let's go to the settings screen. These red buttons are for updating the firmware in the unit and for flashing the drive inverter. Basically, you shouldn't be pressing them while you're driving. It'll shut the inverter down. The first three are for flashing the firmware in the inverter itself. The last two are for updating the firmware in the T2C. One of them, the one that says check firmware, will if you hit that, it'll check the firmware that's on your T2C and compare it against the latest version that's up on our servers. If there's a newer version available, it'll give you the option to update the firmware, which you can do. This is all going to be, it's all over the air. You just need an iPad connected to the internet. The last one, change config, that'd be a button you would use if we've given you instructed you to do that. It'll change the configuration of the firmware on the T2C. Select image. People wanted the ability to customize the interface a bit. What this does is it allows you to choose an image from the gallery or your photo library basically, and you can select a company logo or a picture of a car, and when the T2C gets powered up, it will it's still recording. It will show a picture of that the picture you've selected, so that allows you to customize it a bit. Bottom left, show faults, pretty self-explanatory. It'll show any current faults the inverter's recognizing. Info, that button will pull up the current firmware version that the T2C is running. It'll also get a bunch of ID info from the drive inverter that we may need to stage the right firmware files for your inverter. Never use any of these red inverter flashing buttons or even the change config unless you've been in touch with us, support at evcontrols.com, and we've staged the right files for you. Otherwise it won't work, or you could end up with the wrong firmware. Right settings, obviously up here you've got your max power, max regen, cooling fan temp. That's the temperature that the cooling fan output on the T2C will get triggered. It'll shut off 2 degrees below that. The speed scaler, this can be used to make the speedometer setting or speedometer readout at the top center of the main screen read correctly. This, you know, is to compensate for different tire sizes and that kind of thing. Front wheel speed scaler at the bottom, that's going to be used for traction control or if you have a dual motor setup. The top two, people have asked, max power is in kilowatts, max regen is percentage. Load defaults will just set everything to the defaults. When you click right settings, they get written to the inverter and the speed scaler gets actually stored in the app so that it'll remember next time it's powered up. Unmarried device, the first time you connect to your T2C with the app, you'll get a prompt to marry to the device. That'll make the app remember that particular controller. Some people have more than one controller around them or in a vehicle. To make it forget it, you hit unmarry device. The excuse me. If it's one other thing I should mention, if it's married to a device and it's not near you anymore, you won't be able to get into the settings screen unless you hold the settings button for about 2 or 3 seconds. So if you're having trouble with that, that's the way to solve that. Bms Info. So in this latest release, if you have the latest firmware and the latest version of the app, we've added support for the dilithium BMS. If you hook it to CAN 1, it will, and you hit Bms Info, it'll give you a readout of all the cell voltages, the highest and lowest cell, the delta between them, and whether you have any faults. So that's another thing we've added. Something else we've added in this latest release is, and the latest firmware for the T2C, and with this latest release of the app, is a Bms Warning Light people were asking for. There's 2 ways of triggering it. One is by grounding the spare one input, and the other is if you have a dilithium BMS connected to CAN 1, that'll trigger it on its own when that particular BMS detects a fault. So what I'll do now is I'll unplug one of the cell tap wires to create a fault. So that turned on the Bms fault light, and when I reconnect it, it should clear. Yeah, so that's one more feature. Alright, now in this video we're going to show you how to set up your EV Controls Dash app to start automatically when you turn the key on using an automation. So what you do is tap on the Shortcuts app. If you don't have it, you may need to download it. Click Create Personal Automation. Scroll down to Charger. Make sure Is Connected is checked. Click Next. Then click Add Action. Up here type Open App. Scroll down, you'll see the Open App. Click on that. Where it says Choose, tap on that. And then scroll down and select EV Controls Dash. Click Next. Untoggle Ask Before Running. So select Don't Ask, and then Done. So now we're set up so that the app will start automatically when we turn the key on. You'll have to connect your charger to key power. What we're going to do, the EV Controls Dash app is set up to doesn't time out, it stays on, which is what you'd want when you're driving a car. We're going to add another automation that'll shut it off when the key power is turned off and the charger power is removed. So tap this small plus sign at the top left, create personal automation, and make another one. Go back down to Charger, untoggle is connected, toggle is disconnected. Next, Add Action, again type in Open App. Tap Open App down here where it says Choose, tap on that and select the clock app. Click Next. untoggle ask before running, so don't ask, then tap done. And we're done. So now, we back out of there. Normally the iPad would be sleeping in a black screen. I'll show you what it looks like in a minute. But right now I turn the key power on and it starts our app automatically. And then when you're done, key power off, it'll switch to the stopwatch app, and that app times out automatically after 30 seconds. So effectively turns your iPad off. All right, that's it.